What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. A little bit of a later upload today. I had my in-person draft yesterday, didn't have enough time to get the video up at 8 a.m., but it's going to be up now, and I figured it'd be good to just go over that draft. So it was actually again, in-person draft, so I had to input all of this into Sleeper. We don't actually use Sleeper, but this is the draft, and we're going to basically go over my thought process for all the picks, anything I kind of feel like pointing out. Obviously, my team is this one at pick 7 here, right in the middle. I had the 4th selection in what spot I wanted to get. Again, I've said a lot of times this season, I don't think it matters that much what pick you get. You can build a very strong team, whether you're at the 101, the 107, the 112. I don't think it matters too much. But one thing I know is that there are around 16 to 18, it kind of depends on the person, what they feel like in non-Superflex leagues, around 16 to 18 players that are in this like top tier. And so I figured at 7, I was guaranteed it. I thought about going a little bit beyond that because I figured some people would reach. We'll talk about the reaches that happened in this draft. But yeah, I figured some people would reach, and so maybe I could go a little bit earlier. But I also didn't really want to make some decisions. Like, I didn't want to have to decide. I thought I was going to have to choose between, like, Kelsey, Bijan, and Chubb. Honestly, that's what I thought the decision was going to come down to. I didn't think Eckler would be there, but he ends up being there. So first round, up to my pick is Jefferson, McCaffrey, then Kelsey. I don't want to call it a massive reach because if Kelsey works out, it'll be worth taking him at that point. But yeah, typically we see Kelsey go in the middle of the first round, then Tyreek Hill, Chase, Bijan, and then I get Eckler at 7. That's not like crazy value. I don't think the difference between Eckler and Bijan is anything, massive to where it's ridiculous that you would have taken Bijan over Eckler. But I really wanted to lock up that running back because I kind of figured this league historically does draft relatively running back heavy. People want to get those running backs and then grab wide receiver. As you'll see, tight ends is usually a position that in this league kind of gets thrown back, and that was consideration for me at the 5th round, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, people usually go running back heavy, and so I didn't want to grab like a Stephon Diggs or something like that at that pick and then risk having the other wide receivers. It is half PPR scoring. We do have 2 wide receiver and 2 flex spots, so it would have been fine to go wide receiver heavy. I just knew sometimes in this league there's just massive runs of running back. I didn't want to like completely miss out, so went with Eckler there. Also top player in the ranking, so that makes sense. After my pick, we get Chubb, Diggs, Henry. Mahomes goes at pick 11. That is obviously a little bit of a reach. We see, the 2 and 3 quarterbacks go typically where they normally go, the 211 and the 301. So a reach for Mahomes, not going to sink your team, but you probably don't need to take him that early. Although, if that team really wanted an early quarterback, you're not going to get it at, like the 311 pick. You're not going to get one of those top 3. Then we see CeeDee Lamb round out the first round. So again, nothing crazy in the first round. Maybe Derrick Henry a little early, Mahomes a little early, and Kelsey a little early, but nothing crazy. Second round, I did not think Pollard would make it back to me, especially when Barkley went off the board at 202. But I thought that was fine because I set up my draft to take Eckler and go hero RB. So I figured I'd be choosing between one of St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, or Adams. That's just kind of what I thought was going to be there. And then I didn't want to take Kupp before them. It was going to be after them. Fortunately, Pollard goes there, or doesn't go. So I was sitting there like, okay, this is something I haven't done very much in the mock drafts that I've shown you guys, but typically I don't get this good of value starting off with Eckler and Pollard. So I figured start off with that, hammer these other positions, wait a while for running back. Hopefully the league does continue to go relatively running back heavy and gives me value at wide receivers. Sort of happens, but I basically just miss out on some value a little bit later on. I did not think Cooper Kupp would fall here, but I understand there's the uncertainty around Cooper Kupp. As I said in the Saturday or Sunday video, I'm taking Cooper Kupp after those top end receivers. So we know it's Jefferson, Hill in some order. My order would probably be Jefferson, Chase, Hill, Diggs, and then the whole grouping of A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, Wilson, Adams. After that tier, before we get into Garrett Wilson, Olave, that's where I would take Cooper Kupp. So I just kind of figured, especially name recognition, people would take him somewhere in the late 2nd, early 3rd round. They don't. Adams goes off the board, Olave, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Metcalf, Amari Cooper, and then I get Cooper Kupp at the middle of the 3rd round, which I think is worth the risk. There's absolutely a chance that, Cooper Kupp doesn't play until week 6. Like, that could legitimately happen. I don't think it will. My expectation is basically that he's going to come back sometime maybe in week like 3 or 4, that general range. But I'm comfortable saying I got such a good start at running back. I think I can pick up good wide receivers. Let's take Kupp. We'll put him on IR when he's finally declared out for week 1. If he happens to recover, a little bit earlier than I'm thinking, fantastic. Right now, I've got a player that's worth a top 5 overall pick in the 3rd round to pair with 2 running back ones. That's great. And if he doesn't, if it's delayed a little bit, I think I can pick up good enough value. Almost get amazing value. You guys know I love Calvin Ridley. I was so sad. Calvin Ridley goes the pick before me in round 4. So after I go, no one's taking wide receivers. Gibbs, Lamar, Burrow, Stevenson, Andrews, Fields. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get another really good wide receiver here, which I need, right? Because I'm taking a 3rd round pick. That's not going to be starting in week 1. Debo goes, then Ken Walker, Pierce, and then Ridley. Not the end of the world. I mean, like, I wanted Ridley, right? Because I think Ridley can finish as a wide receiver 1. I think that if Cooper Kupp returns in this draft, I have 2 running back ones, 2 wide receiver ones, and we're looking amazing after that. And I see a drop off in the Keenan Allen. But I'm not upset. Keenan Allen's still going to have a ton of targets this season, a lot of opportunities in the red zone. I didn't at the time realize, if you could have looked ahead in this draft, I have to make my team name something with the Chargers, because it is crazy how many Chargers players I end up drafting in this draft, which happens sometimes in the mock drafts I did. I love Jaguars. I love Chargers this season. But that was one thing I know people are going to ask about, is taking Eckler and Keenan Allen. I think that's fine. I don't think I would have wanted to take Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I end up, spoiler alert, if you look down, taking Quentin Johnston. I thought that was fine because it was really good value for him. And if he, breaks out, it's more that he's not overtaking Mike Williams, but he'd take more work from Mike Williams. Like, Keenan Allen's role is secure. Quentin Johnston's not really eating into Keenan Allen's workload. But yeah, the Quentin Johnston pick, we'll get to it. I just didn't see anything else really at that pick. But again, Keenan Allen's still a great player. I think he's still going to be great for my team. But we are heavily reliant on Herbert. And so when I made that pick, I was like, well, if I'm making this sort of bet on the Chargers, I might as well try and get Herbert after that. He ends up going. Herbert was also in consideration for this pick, but I just missed out on the top 3, Lamar Jackson. And I was like, I don't think enough time has passed. I thought I could get a decent value at some point. So I just go with Keenan Allen instead. After that, honestly, not a ton of players that really want to go off the board at rounds like 4 or 5 after this. What ends up happening is DJ Moore, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, Herbert, Hopkins, Dobbins, Breece Hall, Madison, Mike Williams, Akers, Jonathan Taylor, and Christian Watson. So that goes off the board. And really, I wanted like Christian Watson. I like Dobbins, but maybe a little bit early there. I don't know. There wasn't that many that I was like, oh no, had to get this player. And also, like, I needed receiver, right? Like, I guess Dobbins would have been the one that I would have wanted, but I need receiver. I already have 2 running back ones. I can't be going too heavy into the running back position, even if I can start 4. The goal is still to have Eckler and Pollard and then wide receivers for all the other spots. So I get to the spot and I was like, well, I know this league pushes off tight end. I know one person took Kelsey at 3 here, but I mean, 312 for Andrews. You can see the rest of this draft, like, tight ends kind of got pushed off a decent amount. And so I knew at some point I could get a value, but I also knew I'm going to get some pretty good picks for skill players later on, and I want to try and build a super team, right? Like, I know that I could make this pick and I would have taken Drake London with this spot, and that probably would have benefited me early in the season when Cooper Kupp wasn't able to play. I can play Keenan Allen, Drake London, and my wide receiver 1 and 2, and maybe that helps me a little bit earlier on. But I also just wanted to say, here is a tight end that could finish inside the top 3. They could be a true difference maker. And if I think I can figure out all the other positions in this draft, why not take that? Because I can't necessarily find that later on. Like, I could target Okonkwo, I could target Kincaid, I could target Evan Ingram, and maybe they can make that leap. But why not take someone who's already there if I think I can get good players after that? So I go with Hawkinson, and then Trevor Lawrence falls to me in round 6. I've talked a lot about the top, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Top 8 quarterbacks this season, then the tier break into Watson and Daniel Jones. Really want to lock up one of those top 8. And it was a good value because, the 7th quarterback comes off the board at 410. I get the 8th quarterback at 606. We also have a bonus. So we have a bonus for 5 points for to hit 100 yards rushing, receiving, or 300 passing. And I thought, I wanted kind of a pocket passer who could get me that 300 passing yard bonus. I thought Trevor Lawrence, if he truly breaks out the season, wouldn't be able to get there. And again, would have really wanted Ridley. Maybe I can look for a trade for Ridley or something like Keenan Allen and like a backup player here for Ridley. But yeah, like the team through that point. Get to round 7. I thought Javonte Williams was a fine pick. I think he's a really good value. And I thought after this point, like there was a clear running back drop off. Even getting to that point, not many people took running backs because like I wanted Dave Montgomery, he goes. I wanted Rachaad White, he goes. And then we see Kamara go. I don't know necessarily that I was like trying to get Kamara given my build. Like if I took Kamara, who's out for the first 3 games, plus Kupp, who's out, I'm just like handing myself losses. Now we will see that I kind of do that a little bit later on in this draft, but I think I managed it well enough to where we can kind of surpass that. But yeah, I get Javonte Williams because I was like, well, he's recovered pretty well from this injury. If he can be 100% relatively early in the season, that would be great for me. Lock up that third running back. We can wait a little bit longer because I do still need other running backs. Like if Pollard went down, I only had Eckler, and then I waited after the Williams pick. I still need other running backs. And I knew there was going to be huge runs at some point for running back, and it would be pretty gross later on. So I take Javonte Williams. After that, I go with JSN, another player who might not start the season fully healthy, which was a risk. There's a possibility that my first receiver in round 3, Cooper Kupp, doesn't play in week 1, and my third receiver, JSN, doesn't play in week 1. And so I still, after the 8th round, would have, a wide receiver spot and a flex spot, like a second flex spot, because we have 2 flexes again, that haven't been filled yet. And so I could start the season very slow. Because of that, I lean towards Courtland Sutton in the next round. We know Jerry Jeudy probably not going to be playing the first week. I think it's all but guaranteed at this point. Obviously, Marvin Mims will step into that wide receiver 2 spot, but he's still a rookie. You got to think Courtland Sutton's going to have a very strong workload to start the season, and so I can slot him in potentially at that wide receiver 2 spot, and he can give me probably wide receiver 2 production to start the year, and I'm paying way less draft capital to get that. So that was in the back of my mind, and if we scroll a little bit later to 13th round pick for Van Jefferson, that was also in my mind. Basically, I've taken Cooper Kupp. Van Jefferson's going to be the one until Kupp comes back. And initial projections, as you can kind of see, or maybe you can't see, it might be hiding up here. I'm working on the week 1 projections. That'll probably be up on Monday. Initial projections are not good for Van Jefferson just because the offense just projects so terribly in week 1. But in the weeks that Kupp misses, if I need someone in that second flex spot, I just figured, well, Van Jefferson's going to be the one until Kupp comes back, and obviously I'll get a nice upgrade there. But while I'm missing this player, I at least have someone whose value is boosted. That decision did come down to Van or Romeo Doubs. I just wanted a potential quick start for Van Jefferson a little bit more. So remember, we took Sutton in round 9. Round 10, Quentin Johnston. Again, my third Chargers player is probably going a little bit too heavy, but I looked at the option. I wanted Sky Moore. I wanted Treylon Burks. They go 2 of the 3 picks before me. So that was unfortunate. I really wanted those players over Quentin Johnston. And I just kind of looked at Quentin Johnston. I was like, okay, my option was probably Tony. But is he going to start the season healthy? I don't know if that's going to happen. I can't draft an entire team of everyone not starting in week 1. I do need to try and win the first few weeks of the season. And then again, the only other receivers that went after my Quentin Johnston pick were Michael Thomas, Allen Lazard, and Tony. And we were in a range where I was like, this is kind of gross. Let's just take Quentin Johnston. He's got that upside. Maybe there's a chance Mike Williams goes down. You've got, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston all crushing every week. But I didn't need him to produce right away because I had Keenan Allen, Sutton, and I figured I could get someone else after that. And again, I can start running backs in the flex as well. But it's a risk. Again, this is a risky build because I've got to start 500 over the first 6 weeks. I would say that's my goal, basically, is to start 500. Because if Kupp's not playing to start the year, JSN's not playing, Quentin Johnston starts slow, I draft Jameson Williams in round 12. I draft a backup, a handcuff, and Kelly in round 14. If I can go 500 and then get JSN back, get Cooper Kupp back, have Quentin Johnston starting to break out, get Jameson Williams back from suspension, once that happens, the team's going to be way better. And so if I can start off 500, close the season strong, then we're going to be looking really well. So again, my final picks after Quentin Johnston, I take Jaylen Warren. You all know I love Jaylen Warren. Honestly, that pick would have come down to Zeke, Tank Bigsby or Jalen Warren. And so they kind of made that decision for me. Zeke goes, Bigsby go, and I probably would have taken Warren first. Anyways, after that pick, Jameson Williams, that was really just an upside play. I had the option to go with Mims, but like I probably wouldn't want to start Sutton and Mims both in week 1. That probably wouldn't have worked out very amazingly. But I just didn't see very many options. And I was like, you know what? If we're going for this build type that is breakout late, why not take Jameson Williams? He cannot go on IR, so that's the one very unfortunate thing is he's on my bench. Only a 6-person bench for the first 6 weeks of the season, will not be eligible to go into the IR spot. But it's not a huge deal because I have, again, multiple players who are injured here. One of them's going to go in IR. It's probably going to be Cooper Kupp in IR, so that would end up being fine. Again, I told you about Van Jefferson in round 13. That was just because I might need that strong start, and so I needed that production there. And then Kelly, I know some people ask about that one. There was nothing at running back. I mean, you can see I could have potentially gone with Ty Chandler. That was in consideration. But my thought process was, instead of just drafting someone's backup that hopefully does something, hopefully overtakes these wide receivers, what are the odds that like I have Ty Chandler and in week like 5, when I've got potentially Kupp, Keenan Allen, JSN, Sutton, Quentin Johnston, in week 7 when you can add in Jameson Williams, what are the odds that that running back is actually starting in my starting lineup? Pretty low. Why not secure what I have, right? If Eckler goes down, at least to start the season, Kelly's going to be the direct backup. He's going to have a good role. You'll be able to start him as a running back too. And so I figure if I started off like this, secure Eckler, take his backup, and now even if we get an injury to one of those top 2, we still kind of locked in the top 2 running back spots, and we can figure out everything else after that. And then final pick, the New Orleans Saints. So that's the build. Again, this is my league I've been in for, 10 years, something like that. Hometown league, in-person draft. So everyone had like the pen and paper. We didn't have, the consensus ADPs to go off for the site we were drafting on. I think the team worked out really well. Again, I wanted Calvin Ridley at that spot, and I think it fell apart a little bit here with Quentin Johnston not getting Burks or Sky Moore that I definitely wanted more. And then maybe it was a mistake drafting so many players that are not going to start the season fully healthy or on the active roster. But the goal is to just get some wins. If I can pull out like a 2-2 start, that's going to be really, really good for me because we're definitely going to peak late. I was pumped getting Cooper Kupp this late in the draft, and I was happy getting Trevor Lawrence right at the end of that tier. Had I not gotten Trevor Lawrence, I probably would have waited a while. I would have targeted Daniel Jones, but I wouldn't have gotten him because I wouldn't have taken him in round 7. I would have tried to get him a little bit later. I probably would have targeted Kirk Cousins at some point, potentially would have gotten sniped on him there. And then I would have gone after Geno Smith, so maybe I would have gotten Geno Smith in round 12. But yeah, I'm happy I got Trevor Lawrence because I got him, just before, Daniel Jones, Rodgers, Watson kind of come off the board. And I do see a pretty significant jump off there. And I'm happy I got Hawkinson. That's one thing I just want to continue pointing out. When you're in these hometown leagues, you think you have some sort of edge in the later rounds. It's like everyone can kind of take dart throws at tight ends, but not everyone, might be able to draft decent skill players in the later rounds. And if you think that you can draft solid skill players, the edge is grab that elite tight end and quarterback because you can't find Hawkinson in the later rounds. It's unlikely a super late round pick is going to outproduce Trevor Lawrence, but a late round pick could be pretty good at running back or wide receiver. And so maybe take those positions later on and then, try and build that super team. That's just the thing you want is when you're in the fantasy playoffs and you've got that starting lineup, this is what I'm looking at right here. These 2 running back ones, 2 potential wide receiver ones, and then, 2 potential like top 5 options at tight end and quarterback. So that's the team. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to upload a mock draft, but I can't record that today. I don't have time to record it today, so it's going to be another later upload. I'll record that in the morning tomorrow. Probably get that up around noon, kind of like this video will probably go up around noon. That's the end of this one. Week 1 content will probably start, or there'll really only be like one video for week 1 content, but that'll probably start on Wednesday. I'm working on the projections for week 1. I'm going to do a big rankings video on Wednesday that includes like all positions, all the games. We're just going to deep dive into that. So Monday's mock draft Monday, probably nothing on Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be that big video. If you want in-season content, that is now available on the website. And again, if you want draft content, that is also obviously available, although many of you probably already had your draft. So that'll do it for this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.